everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. Today, we want to talk about what happens when your life doesn't match your vision board. And, it's beginning of February. Traditionally, and from a research perspective, this is about the time where people kind of give up the ghost on their quote unquote New Year's resolutions. Of course, at the beginning of the year, we talked about being braver and not better. So Kari and I aren't particularly resolution people. Um, but with that comes sometimes guilt and shame. And so we want to start by saying this very clearly. We both actually believe there are a lot of tools that are useful around intention and visioning and mindset. We definitely work in those spaces. That's kind of the bread and butter of being a coach. We both use them personally, but and we use them obviously with our clients and so forth. And I think the power in those tools, whether it's a vision board or goal setting, I'm going to explain what we use a lot called the Big Five. The power is in naming, paying attention to what matters, putting your attention to what matters, and then again, sort of orienting your life in that direction. When you bring something to the front of your mind, what you pay attention to, you get more of, it does change how you move through the world. You do notice things more. You notice how things are sort of quote unquote falling into place. You choose differently. You are more awake to what supports you and what you want.
Mm, absolutely. And just a little disclaimer here. I am nursing a cold and cough. So thanks for bearing with me. Um, I am happy to be talking about this though, because yes, February is a time that these things start to happen, especially because of weather. Weather sets in and people are
Yeah.
like, ah, fuck it.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
I think when this airs, my birthday is tomorrow. And I used to take it personally when people said they hate February. And I
That's
get it. I live in
hysterical.
Portland. I get it. um, so like, yeah, you're more awake, like you said, to what supports you say you want because you've put it at the forefront, right? But at the same
Right.
time, both personally and professionally, we also know that sometimes life has other plans.
For sure.
And when you're in the middle of something really hard, it can feel trite or even painful to be told, you just have to believe harder. You have to envision it. Um, that, that as if you've been listening, we follow a lot of deconstructing people. That is a big gaslighting tool of
Yes.
the patriarchy and or high control religions of all types. But it also happens in the woo world as well.
Totally.
Oh, you're not believing strong enough, or I think there's a great scene in Sex in the City where like Charlotte's just like paying to go listen to someone talk about where to
Yes.
find love, and she's like, but you just didn't really believe it. You didn't want it bad enough, and just
And Carrie
so just
loses her
yeah, she loses
shit.
it. Like nobody believes harder than this girl,
Yeah.
and I think that's a great demonstration of where that becomes BS.
Yeah.
So this comes up personally and like as a supporter of some, like as a caregiver mom, and I see this among caregivers of all types, right? For people navigating disability, illness, or treatments that are radically altering the shape of their lives, right? And what they planned. Life happens when you're making other plans, right? That's a John Lennon quote. You can't mindset your way out of everything. And also pretending otherwise can create shame instead of support, like you
A-
said.
Absolutely. And again, I love a good manifestation, but so this isn't an episode that throws that out the door. I know
Right.
lots of people that gosh, they manifest everything they want. But again, it's not an episode that just says mindset's enough, right? It's an episode about holding both intention and reality, wishing, dreaming, and doing, hope and honesty, vision and compassion for what is actually happening. Yes, you can decide what you want, and then 6, 8, 10 months later, it's like, I manifested that. Well, yes, but because there were some steps in between the idea of what you wanted and it
Yes.
actually coming true.
I also think manifestation works really well interpersonally because
Mm,
I think about like Peter and I have I mean, it's probably not just Peter and I, but that's top of mind. We have a really good good way we do that where I might throw out an idea like, hey, but if you guys are around, remember this was like a year ago, right? If you guys
Yeah.
are around on your birthday, Krungbin's in town, and maybe if you and Emily are in town, you can use our tickets and go with Miles and Molly or something like that. And that happened, right? Because I
Yeah.
planted the seed, because I created
Right.
a what if this happened? Peter's
Right.
really good at that. Like if you put it out there, then you get more people involved in making it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so let's talk about why vision boards and intention setting actually do work when they work, right? Like an
Right.
example such as that. And again, we do this a lot with our clients, and I do tend to like to do it sort of at the end of a year, just because it's naturally where people land. You and I do this in our retreat, in the one that's coming up in just a few weeks in Palm Springs. We will be doing this, and it's called the Big Five Visioning Experience. And I'm not going to go into deep detail, but we're going to be referencing it, so I want to give you a sense of what it is. I always call the Big Five a unique goal setting experience because it's very intuitive. It's harder the more I do it with my clients because they know what's coming, but we sort of do a little future pacing. So there's a little going within and picturing success. And then we come back and we ask, based on an I am statement, what are the top 1 to 3 things you want to be experiencing in the top 5 areas of life, which is health, love, money, career, and that which is greater. And what I love about it, what happens in this process is I always say, this needs to be intuitive and let whatever comes to you come to you because this isn't about the how. This isn't about, okay, it's not a to-do list, right? So now that we've got this vision, big five vision for our next 12 months, it's not like life suddenly becomes compliant. It's just, again, people get clear on what they want. They're saying it, they're writing it down, they're saying it out loud to me. I'm writing it down. So it is putting it out there in the universe in a way that when it just sits in our head and rolls around in there with everything else going on, it might get lost. And so this sort of grounding into these goals helps you start paying attention to where all the bits and pieces are already in place or starting to be in place.
Absolutely. And just a little check in here. Hopefully you have it on speaker view and so people don't have to watch me blow my nose when you're talking.
I do not have it on
Okay.
speaker view. It's always side to side.
Oh, excellent.
I can
Well, if you
change it.
can switch it, go ahead.
Okay, I will.
Okay. Just so we can spare people
Fair.
anyway. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, like to just piggyback on what you're saying, because when someone names what they want in each of those areas, I think it gives them language, right? Language
Yep.
is grounding. It helps people make decisions. And I think that makes us less reactive, more aligned, and more grounded, like more ready for what's coming when you're actually grounded in what you're going for. And we're going to get into like, what happens when life has other plans. We'll get more into that. But so even when circumstances are hard, and both of us can speak to that, I think the clarity reduces the constant background noise of shoulds, right?
Yes. Yep.
It's not saying you're so focused that you can't take anything else that's happening. It's the like, all right, I might need to pivot here, right? So
Yeah.
I see people feel calmer, not because they're controlling outcomes, but because they know what they're aiming for.
Yeah, and this is where sometimes people mistake what's happening for like magic or woo. And again, what's really happening is attention. When something moves from the back of your mind or swirling around, buried with everything else going on, and it moves to the front, your brain starts to notice it, support it, and what's under there. It can start looking like opportunities showing up, but it's really just your discernment sharpening. It's like what I always joke about when you're pregnant, all you see is pregnant women. When you buy a new red
Right.
car, all you
Right.
see is that same red car, right? So it isn't magic. It is again discernment.
Yeah. I think, I always joke that iPhones, computers, they remind me of brain. It's like we're using 10% of their actual capacity. I
Right.
think that is something that's been fascinating that as you grow older, you learn about your brain that you hear a word, you learn a new word, and then suddenly you notice it everywhere.
Yep.
That isn't magic. That
No.
is absolutely attunement, right? So
Yeah.
I think that discernment you talk about, it matters so much when life gets complicated because instead of asking, how do I make this look like the plan? The question
Mm,
becomes, how do I make choices that support what matters most right now?
yeah. Yeah.
And that's a very different posture than forcing positivity or chasing outcomes and missing what's happening for you.
Yep. I mean, I used to say this to students all the time when we were coaching at HCI because they would have a very definitive vision of what their coaching business was supposed to look like.
Mm,
And I would say, when you get so stuck on the if it doesn't happen this way, you put blinders on, and then your blinders, you're missing all these other opportunities that are floating outside of your tunnel vision. And I think, and that's why I do really constantly say while I'm doing the big five, whether it's at the retreats or with my clients in particular, this is not a how. This is not a to-do list. It is an orientation exercise. I have one. Oh, I miss her so much, Whitney. I wish we could get her at a retreat. I love her so much. Not Whitney, our boss, a
yeah.
client of mine. She that was the hardest part of ever doing the big five was I'd be like, it's not, you don't need to know the how. And she's like, no. And I'm like, no, you don't need to know the how. And the other thing that's lovely about the Big Five experience is that it is once you're done with it, you set it aside, you put it outside. It's sort of just energetically in your realm. I keep mine on a bulletin board behind me, so I just sort of energetically pass it all the time. And it just becomes a way that I'm just sort of sometimes checking in with myself throughout the year and asking, is this aligned with what I wanted? Am I drifting because something louder took over? It's just a check-in, and more often than not, I don't even think to look at it again until closer to the time it's time for me to do it for myself. And inevitably, a lot of what I have put on that visioning experience has come true.
Mm. Yeah, you're good at that. It's really and honestly, like that's where people often experience their momentum, right? Not because
Right.
everything lines up, but because they are less split inside. Like, and I think of
Mm,
it as elastic.
mm.
It's like elastic doesn't completely change form. It just kind of it stretches, meets you where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Very grateful for it in this moment.
Yeah. 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 I mean, again, we talked about this in the things we wish we thought we knew or whatever. I can never remember what we called that topic. The things we thought we knew, is
Right.
we had a vision of what 2025 was going to look like. Didn't exactly go that way, but it didn't come, but in that not going the way we vision more internally in our own lives than externally, um, it didn't just like knock us for a loop. It was just like, okay, it's like float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. You got to be like moving around and be flexible with all of this. And I think that this is where sometimes if you hold too tightly to intention and intention setting, it can start to feel like pressure. And that's absolutely what we're not here to speak about, right? Like when it stops being about orientation, it starts being about the to-do list, it starts being about performance. Did I do this right? Am I manifesting correctly? Why hasn't this happened yet? That's when people start to internalize this pressure and make it them like self-character assassinations. So now the intention is no longer being supportive. It just is another place that we're feeling like we're falling short. And of course, women in particular.
Right. And again, I just think it's super important to be really careful because it's not theoretical for a lot of people. Like for caregivers, for people, who have a cancer diagnosis, for anyone whose life has been altered by, unforeseen things out of their control. The idea that you can simply reframe your way out of reality always feels dismissive. We said that already. We'll keep saying it because we want to be really clear about that there's circumstances where the work is, it's not imagining a better future, but grieving the one you thought you were going to have, not skipping that part, right?
Yeah.
And no amount of positive thinking bypasses that. However, some of the most inspiring positive thinking comes from those people.
Right.
And so there's a lot to learn there as well, right? Like, you know, I'm sure I say this somewhere in these notes, but like, it's like going from bucket to fuck it and bucket list to fuck it list, but like it doesn't mean you're giving up on something really important. It means you're pivoting how it's important to you, or, you know,
Or how life is showing up,
right,
right? I
right.
mean, yeah, absolutely. And you know, I guess I hope for most people that utilize these mindset tools that and if they've never thought of it this way, that they do going forward, right? This was never having something positive to look at, thinking about goal setting is never meant to replace grief, adaptation. Um, these tools are meant to walk alongside of the grief. And when they get used as a substitute, you know, that's when the harm happens. And it can be really subtle until it's not. Um, because nobody's usually saying this shitty stuff out loud, right? It's implied. Um, but when we're more aligned, you get this sort of internal conversation with yourself. Well, I'm not trying hard enough. If I was more aligned, if my energy was different, it would be easier. And once you start going down that path, holy moly, that is isolating because
Mm.
you're also not allowing, because there's some shame there, right? So you're not allowing other people to support you in that.
And we see this a lot as coaches, but like that's what makes you feel like you're failing twice, right?
Yeah.
Once because life is just hard, and we especially women, we are just kind of programmed to self-blame. Whole
Yep.
episode about that.
Yeah.
And again, because they're not doing it right.
Right.
So it's like I caused this and I'm not responding to it correctly, and that's where shame creeps in, and shame is never a good motivator. Trust
Yeah.
me, I've tried.
Haven't we all? Yeah, no, and I think yeah, it's a double whammy for sure. So I think this is where the research helps because it does bring us back into reality. Not again, not as a way to judge ourselves, but as a way to understand what these tools are actually good for because they are used in the correct way, very helpful. Okay, so
Mm.
one example is the work of Gabrielle Oettingen. I'm going to say that Oettingen. Yeah, that sounds right. She's a psychologist who studied goal pursuit and motivation. And what she found was that people who only visualize success often just feel a short term boost, but they don't necessarily take action. In some cases, imagining success too vividly can actually reduce effort. And this is so funny because I had a personal trainer. No, I'm sorry, she wasn't my personal trainer. She was my physical therapist, PT, two PTs. And I remember so distinctly her telling me once that had decided she was going to run a marathon. And she's like, but I'm not telling too many people because I realize that when I tell things like that, I get the adrenaline boost and then I never follow through because it's like, oh,
Mm.
it's like I've already gotten the kudos for saying I'm going to do a marathon and
That
then
was
I don't
enough.
do it. Yeah, done. I feel good. I got it. Right. And then
Is
she didn't
this
have to
like
run.
me buying books that I don't get to?
Oh, bitch, like the amount of books I own that I don't get to. Sorry, I can't make you laugh. Little coughing Jack. Thumbs up.
All good.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean that's
Mm.
it. And I do. That's a beautiful funny example because I am literally looking at books around my desk here that I was like I had such good intentions.
Right? Oh my gosh. And you know what I appreciate about this is it validates what so many people intuitively feel. Like optimism without realism,
Realism.
realism can feel hollow.
Yeah.
Um, Otten, Ottingen, her concept of mental contrasting invites people to hold the vision that and the obstacles at the same time.
I
Not
love
to be
this.
negative, right? But to be honest. That honesty creates traction. Because instead of asking, why isn't this working? The question becomes, what is actually in the way and what support would help? I love this so much. I'm going to use this. And and what it makes me think of too, and I used to just kind of rattle off stuff like this that I would read and go, huh, that makes sense, and tell my kids. You remember all the studies about the team that just envisions, like does more envisioning and only practices like a little, will do
Yep.
better than the team that just practice. And then the team that just only visualizes it. This does sort of, it doesn't upend it, but it does call that into question because I do think you can't win without practicing.
Right, right.
And you will win better if you actually envision it. You'll work together better as a team, probably. So I think that this is in line sort of with that. Like, what are the obstacles? This team has a way better record than us, but this is also how they play. So if we can
Right.
envision it, but also practice how we would respond to the way they play. I don't know. I'm not
No,
speaking in any basketball expertise, but yeah.
no, no, no. But okay, but that's interesting because we also do. Oh, now I can't remember what it's called. It's lost it. But it's sort of future pacing. We do this again as coaches quite a bit. Two things come to mind when I read this. One, one of my very first clients I ever had when we were going through mental rehearsal. That's the word I was looking for.
Oh yeah.
She had been a rower in college, and she said, "Oh yeah, this is totally how we used to practice." Like obviously they got out and were on the water rowing, but then they before every competition would picture what it was going to be like to get in the boat, do this, do that. And even Charlotte with Irish dancing, they learned on their hands before they'd learn to the song. And then before any big competition, they had to mentally picture being on stage with two other girls and dancing so they didn't hit each other. So to your point, like yes, you have to practice, but if all you do is practice and you don't think about all the ways stuff could go wrong so that you could pivot, and again, I think that's one of the things we do as coaches oftentimes, right? We talk with our clients about what they want. And then one of the final questions is always like, what could keep you from getting this? And often the time is, it's me. Okay, but tell me more. What specifically could keep you from reaching this goal, right? So this research
Yeah.
makes complete sense to me.
Absolutely. And it's so in line with how we were trained. Like, okay, because
Totally.
you don't really need a coach if you could just be like, okay, I'm going to write this down and I'm going to do it. We're going to walk through and sort of, practice what happens when that doesn't happen. How do you still get there or to some version of there? So I love that.
Yeah,
And it feels
absolutely.
so much more humane, especially for
Yes.
people whose lives already require a lot of adaptation. I mean, I'm the master of pivoting. Life's taught me to be. I don't think I would have gone out and just to be that way. And I think it says I can't control everything, but I'm not powerless either.
Yeah, and there was some other research from a guy named Peter Goldwitzer, and again, it's along these same lines of the visualization and the challenges. His research focused on why people who follow through on intentions or don't, and they are more likely to when they decide ahead of time how they're going to respond to challenges. So it's not just ooh, what could get in your way, right? Because again, like I said, they use, oh, the only thing that can get in my way is me. Okay, but I need something more specific. So his research was like, okay, if this happens, I'll do this. If this happens, I'll do that. So again, it takes it out of just the intention and wishing part of wish it, dream it, do it, and puts it into the realm of self-trust. You're not promising a result, you're deciding how you're going to show up regardless of what obstacles get in your way, right?
Yeah, I would say too, like I have the funny example. It's not like a big vision or a big plan. It literally was a momentary thing when we got Mabel, the puppy.
Hmm.
It was 2021. There was a lot going on. That was like a crazy road trip, if you recall this, that
Yes.
Miles and Griffin and I, we combined it with like at the time it was really hard to get a DMV appointment, because we were still in the COVID era.
Yeah.
So people were having to go like really far, and we did too. And so we figured out like when we could get the puppy. in Idaho. So we had to go east of, or like all through Oregon, out
Yeah.
east, and we went to the easternmost part of Oregon, Pendleton, for his appointment for his permit. At that time, Griffin was experiencing a lot of drops, so it was a
Mm.
very and my other dog that we took with us had an injury from playing with my friend's puppy, so he had to go.
Oh, geez, oh,
So we're
peace.
in this like crazy road trip, like ultimately a 6 hour, but like, stops along the way. And amidst that, which is so funny, just as a funny aside, Miles was participating in the second in a row recital, but over Zoom.
Oh,
And because he had continued lessons over Zoom.
yeah.
And so he pre-recorded his piece, but got on live Zoom to introduce it. And then she played the pre-recorded piece. All of this was happening once. This is just so funny. So on the way back, we were like, this is crazy that we even tried to do all this. And okay, we're gonna get in. How are we gonna introduce her? Like, I asked Dad to put up a gate. I have to pee so bad, like you can't even have the radio on. Like we were like, okay, we're gonna pull up. You're gonna do this. I'm gonna go pee and this. And so I'm saying this because as you were describing that actually really helped us take a very chaotic situation about who was gonna help Griffin in. How are
Yeah.
we gonna take care of Ozzy in this big transition and make sure things didn't get, and then how do we bring this little puppy in, and how do we get to the back of the kitchen with all of that going on.
Right.
And it's funny because I think I just am naturally that way, probably from my training, is like rehearse it first,
Yeah.
verbally rehearse it with someone who needs to be part of it, and it will go so much more smoothly.
I mean, I've been doing mental rehearsal. I didn't know that's what it was called, but I have been doing mental rehearsal since my Weight Watcher days. I mean, especially around events, people would come in and they'd have a wedding or the holidays, of course, was always a big deal. And it was like, picture what you want. If you're going to a holiday party, right? And again, just talking about this makes my blood boil, but people didn't want to gain a lot of weight over the holidays. And so it was like, okay, well, you're going to all these holiday parties. Why? Why do you even want to go to these holiday parties? Oh, because I want to see my friends and family. Great. Then let's talk about what it looks like to walk to the buffet table and see this person. And you got the food pusher. And again, I mean, it was even as far as things like the obstacles, like a food pusher who wanted, why aren't you eating this? Why aren't you eating that? So it's interesting that even like, sort of to your point, probably even before I genuinely got trained, it is such a helpful tool. And once I learned what it was, I was like, oh, Charlie used to do this, and I did this, and you just start to notice that how much easier hitting your goals and your intentions happen when you can kind of mentally rehearse it. But I thought the earlier statement about understand or having too vividly connecting with the success was interesting as well. So it's like
Right.
some people have a hard time when
Mm.
we do the future pacing piece of this to really see the senses, right? And that's great because there's no wrong way to do the big five. And again, even in that, sometimes the goals can feel a little heavy, especially as the year goes on, and maybe they're not always hitting them the way they thought they wanted to. So it's a good reminder to focus on what is happening, what have you done, um, and then you can reconnect with the intention, the why beneath the why of all of this.
Yeah, I want to say too, real quick before I like build on what you just said. It's just a great tool
Yep.
when you're in relationships with neurodivergent people too. Like my
Mm,
son, it's so much more helpful to picture what's going to happen. How are you going to feel if you lose this game you're about to
right.
play? How are you going to feel if that person cancels these plans you're looking forward to, or that concert you were looking forward to got canceled because the artist is fatigued? Like, what would be a good backup plan for that night if that happens
Yeah.
again? Those kind of things. Really helpful. It's helpful for all of us, but definitely if
Yeah.
you have a neurodivergent person in your life, sometimes that is so helpful to give them a chance to rehearse options of how to
That's really
react.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so glad you brought this up because it's where Danielle Laporte, if people have heard of her, years ago when we were in coaching training, her stuff just was kind of getting fed to me. And I didn't read a lot of her stuff. She has a lot of great stuff apparently, fire starter sessions, desire mapping, all of that. But her desire mapping planner became a tool that I loved so much that I've just
Mm.
incorporated in the way I work with myself and clients, which is, and honestly, as a parent, um, what it asks is a fundamentally different question, right? Instead of what I do want to accomplish, it asks, how do I want to feel? Right. So it's not
Mm.
about the doing, it's about the being. Like, and it's really about like, okay, if your goal for this year, this month, this week, this day is I want to feel peaceful or I want to feel accomplished or I want to feel stronger or whatever it is, and before you add things to your to-do list, ask, is this in service of that or not? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just stuff you got to do. But in general, what you commit time to is going to contribute to how you feel.
Yeah.
And if your goal is about how you want to feel, it really allows you to pivot in those moments where the things, the doing, don't go your way. And you're like, okay, but if my goal is to feel this way, how could I still accomplish that?
Yeah.
And the shift sounds simple, but it's super profound, right? Because feelings are not dependent on a specific outcome. If what you want to feel is connected, grounded, or alive, there's just a lot of ways to experience that. Some of them look nothing like, I have a million examples of that, but nothing like the original plan.
I think that's interesting. I just did the big five for 2025 with a client because we're still recording this in 2025. And we revisited her one from last year. And one of the things on there was she wanted to go to this meditation retreat in Hawaii. And I knew she hadn't gone to it. I didn't even think anything of it. And she was like, yep, don't even care that I didn't want to go there because her overriding feeling for 2025 that she had wanted, because at the end of the big five, one of the questions is, how do you feel looking at all of this stuff that you've just said you wanted in the next 12 months? And her overriding feeling for what she wanted in 2025 was simplicity. And how can I make this simpler? And so when I was repeating back to her and I said, meditation retreat in Hawaii, she's like, yep, didn't go to that, don't even care. And literally was just like, kind of, again, the
Yeah,
fuck it list, right? And,
right.
and so I think that's, it's when you can hone in on how you want to feel, then when and if something in your goal setting doesn't, not only does it not go the way you want, but maybe you just decide, I no longer want that. If it's because you no longer feel a certain way about that goal, it just, again, it takes away the shame. It allows you to be more flexible, more responsive, more content. And ultimately, isn't that what we all want?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, and this is where I joke again about that bucket list of fuck it, because not only do goals not matter, because sometimes wisdom looks like letting go of what you thought it had to look like, right?
Yep.
If what matters is how I feel in my life, then it matters, you know, less whether I'm hiking a mountain or staying home, snuggling with a dog because my family might need me home that day. You know,
Right.
someone might need to stay near Griffin if there's been a seizure and there's no caregiver. The metric changes. That can be incredibly freeing, especially for caregivers. And as I'm saying this, I'm like, maybe that's where those books come in. Maybe that's my like, oh, well, now I can read a book and still accomplish that and just go there in my mind. I don't know. Um, maybe that's the
Well,
secret pivot gift I gave myself.
there you go. I love when we have our own ahas in these in
Yeah.
these episodes. Yeah, because it doesn't mean deciding to pivot doesn't mean you're giving up on growth. It just means you're redefining it. I think we can all admit that what we think is going to happen in any 365 days of your life, we have no fucking clue. We have no clue what is going to happen. It goes back to the past doesn't exist, the future doesn't exist. All we have is being present. So if you choose at any point to redefine what is important to you, so be it.
I agree.
So again, it's a pattern worth naming. Those people that do feel ashamed that they haven't gone after what they want, and then they blame themselves.
Mm,
They're just too lazy. Oh my God.
mm,
I know so many people like this. I'm just too lazy.
mhm.
No, it oftentimes is about fear, overwhelm,
Absolutely.
protection, sometimes, it is as woo as the body knows something the mind hasn't quite caught up with yet. I was just having this conversation last night. I went and got some refresh on my tattoos and my tattoo
I didn't
artist,
know
and
that.
yeah,
That's
my whole
cool.
arm is completely hurting and taped up right now. Um, but we were talking about it. She was asking me about, like, how's work going? And I was like, it's interesting. I have room for clients. I've always had room for a couple more clients, and there are definitely things I could be doing to get more clients, and yet I'm not doing them. But also, what I know is when I don't have a client, there's usually something else that needs my attention. You have the same experience. And so I don't ever guilt myself for not doing the things. I just figure, like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to get the clients I'm going to get. I'm too old for hustle culture, I guess. And I say that lovingly, happily.
Yeah. I I totally love that and appreciate that. And I definitely still, as you know, struggle with an inner voice of feeling quote unquote lazy when I do less what I would,
Mm,
what an old version of me would call productive things than but I mean it is pretty impressive what I can accomplish even like not moving.
yeah.
Like I might look like I'm zoning out. I'm like literally doing a bunch of like planning and scheduling and responding and filing and stuff. But um, like physical tasks or things like I can be that way. But you know, I also know better. I get coached. I am a coach. If I don't have formal coaching, I have you to remind me this. But it's often where coaching just becomes an invitation rather than a push, right? Because it isn't about why aren't you doing this? It's what it's funny because like I don't live with someone who would ever do that to me, but I find myself like going, I'm doing that like and it's like
We're
nobody
doing it to
asked. You're,
ourselves more than
yeah, right.
externally. Yeah, for sure.
Um, it's what feels risky here, what feels unsupported, what would make this more humane, right? When shame is present, people tend to freeze. When compassion is present, movement becomes possible. And what I mean by this is, yeah, you're doing it to yourself. It's really an invitation to be like, where's this coming from?
Right.
And I don't know about you, but like I can literally like be I am a big believer that, and we've talked about this before, the greatest way to like collapse any anxiety or stress is to just do the thing. Don't stress
Yeah.
about it. Don't. So I am a little bit like, just do it. Stop stressing about it. Stop like telling yourself you're a shitty procrastinator. Just stop and do it.
Right.
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes there's other things that need your attention. So like, where is this coming from? Is there an emotion that you're not stopping to name and feel? Because
Mm,
that might be all you need to do. Is there some help you need? Is there some collaboration that would help? Whatever it is, all of it, underscores what we're saying. Get curious because like there's some just questions to ask and answer. But like the amount of times I felt really behind, and then when I go to do them, I'm like, okay, that took me 5 minutes, and also it wasn't the end of the world if I didn't do it.
right. Right. I mean, I think you nailed it right there, though. When we're sitting in shame and guilt, that then we're in fight, flight, or freeze. When we're sitting in curiosity, creativity happens, flexibility happens. It's
Yeah,
such a vice to be in shame or guilt around this stuff. And whatever movement you make, whatever your next best step is, it does not have to be dramatic, right? It often is the tiniest thing. Again, we keep talking about our positive intelligence course, but one of the ways to move forward is just like, what can you do that takes 10 seconds? That could be the next best step. And if that's all you do is that one 10-second step, so be it. But chances are that one 10-second step is going to be another one, it's going to be another one. And we go back to my old adage that I don't say as much anymore: small hinges, big swing, swing big doors. And that's where real progress comes in.
hmm. Yeah. Um, I will say this. When I was first kind of introduced, I mean, years and years ago, to the idea of vision boards, this wonderful, sweet mentor I had, Mele, who had really like she was mentored in certain ways and something I was learning, but she had never really left Hawaii much, and she happened to get like stuck in Oregon on a layover and reached out. We had never met in person, and she said, "Do you have time?" And I said, "I live not far from the airport. I'm off work today because I was, working out of the house, but I can't remember why we didn't why I was off that day. Could have been like a holiday. And uh, I said, I'll come pick you up and take you for a hike. She said, oh, I don't have shoes for that. And I said, well, what size are your feet? Same size as me. So I bring her an extra pair and we go out to a more touristy hike, Multnomah Falls. It's the iconic thing that you would see if you're looking at, the gorge or Portland
Mm,
in photos. If you were to Google gorge or Portland, you'd probably see Multnomah Falls. It's beautiful. It's stunning. I took you there.
yeah.
Um, so I take her there and she's like jaw on the floor. And she has had like a really rough life. What a beautiful human being. Like the way she just looks at the world and how she's just like the most woo-woo manifester, but for a lot of good reasons. I mean, she
Uh-huh.
really like lost her mom tragically, had a foster family. Like she just really believes in vision boarding, creating everything for her. She says, I can't believe this because I wrote more travel and I, for some reason, thought of Oregon. And this was the only picture I found. And I put it on my board and look where I am. Like I never saw
Wow.
myself going here. So I love to share stories like that because it is a great reminder that like, there is some alignment that happens when you put your attention on things. And who knew how that happened, but
Well,
it
and
did.
I'm sure on her vision board, she thought she would travel to Portland to do that. And instead, it showed up
It
because
just happened.
it just happened, right?
She
So
didn't
there,
even know the name of it.
oh, that's so funny.
She had
I
no idea
love
what it
those
was.
kinds of stories because those are the kinds of stories, and they're somewhat few and far between where that do actually feel magical, right?
Yeah.
I had a client, Marie, she was on our episode really early on in in the pod about dating yourself, and she is amazing manifester, and she like had this vision of the house she wanted, and one day she was out driving and she saw it and it wasn't for sale, but she did the old walk up and knock on the door and ended up buying it.
Wow.
So there are those magical moments for sure. But if you sit in a space where I'm just gonna, again, like Music Man, the think method, I'm just gonna think about it and it's gonna magically show up, you are gonna be disappointed.
Well,
So
and also, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to say
no,
we see this all the time and we hear this, and this is the important piece of it. Manifesting only works if you actually take action on the invitations that are
correct.
presented to you. So vision
Yep,
boards, seeing them as invitations, not contracts, and North Stars, not performance reviews, means pay attention. If that's what you want, there are windows and doors that open for you, but they'll close too if you don't pay attention to them, or they may
yep.
not close, but you may just walk right by them. So giving yourselves giving ourselves permission to revise those, revising your vision isn't failure. It's responsiveness. It's adjusting. It's paying attention to who you're becoming and what life is asking of you now. And what I always say to clients when we first start working together, like we're going to go on this journey and it's my job, it's your job as coach. Like our job is to like, we're going to keep like checking in and going, okay, is this still where we're headed? Because we might change the destination.
Totally.
And what we said we were going to stop at on the way might become less important than where we actually do stop along the way. So I think that I wouldn't be a good coach if I didn't say, hey, if you trust me, you have my permission. We may make stops you weren't planning to, and we may check in and together, because it's really going to be led by you, decide that the destination is less important than where we're actually headed now.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's not giving up. That's growing wiser. It's maturity, right? At any age. Um, so you picked a great song this week. Do you want to do the honors, or would you like me to, based on whether you feel like coughing or not?
I think I'm going to let you.
Okay, I'll do it.
I'm going to
So
pop a cough drop while you do that.
all right, perfect. I love this song. This Must Be the Place by the Talking Heads, by Talking Heads. I guess it's not like it's like the Eagles. They're not actually the Eagles. It's Eagles. Okay. Home is where I want to be. Pick me up and turn me round. I feel numb, born with a weak heart. I guess I must be having fun. The less we say about it, the better. Make it up as we go along. Feet on the ground, head in the sky. It's okay. I know nothing's wrong. I got plenty of time. You got light in your eyes, and you're standing here beside me. I love the passing of time, never for money, always for love. Cover up and say goodnight. I
Oh,
love
that's
that
just
song.
the coziest lyrics ever.
Talking Heads is funny because that was a band that I was not that into when they were out in the
Mm.
80s. And then Liam fell in love with them, and he definitely turned me much more onto them. And then we got to go see David Byrne on Broadway, which was fucking the best night of,
Amazing.
oh my God, so goddamn good. And now I just love him. Was it you that sent me he has a Instagram feed
Yes.
that's just him dancing?
Oh my God. Well, because Brendan was a huge fan in high school, so that's how I was a fan in high school too.
Okay.
But yes,
Oh my
that
God.
is like
He's just
like
darling.
the handle I didn't know I needed to follow. So
Totally.
good.
In the kilt and like doing it like an exercise video. And now we're gonna
So
shake our
good.
hips.
That's so
So I
good.
love him. All right, so let's before we finish, we want to offer a short reflection that you can sit with. So if you're listening, maybe go ahead and you're going to be part of our coaching here. Go ahead and close your eyes and think about or just focus on something you hoped for, you envisioned, maybe you committed to paper that you'd hope you'd accomplish or acquire, but it didn't pan out or got interrupted.
Hmm. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you some questions about that. What did you hope that vision, plan, dream would give you? What was the intention around that particular thing or feeling? So, not the thing itself, but just the feeling underneath it. And then also, how else might you invite more of that feeling into your life right now? What's another way to do that? And what are ways to do that in ways that fit the season you're actually in?
And the thing is, there's no wrong way to do this. I mean, gosh, if I had a dime for every time I
Mhm.
said that, this is always, always, always about curiosity. Just get curious.
Yeah. And as an example, I had an intention as the house emptied this fall that I would be more intentional with time with my friends, right? People that mattered in my life who had been empty nesting. And while I'm not empty nesting, I had more time. And I looked forward to two particular gatherings because, as life would have it, life is busy for everybody, right? So I looked with so much anticipation. I even made food and did other things to prepare to go to those. And both times at the last minute, I ended up staying home due to unforeseen seizures, or obviously we never planned for those, requiring for us to stay close to home. Um, and that was sad in the moment, but also, I'm better and really good at surrendering to that. And because I looked at what is it that I wanted, and it was more presence and more connection with dear ones, right? So yeah, I didn't make it to those, but I got really good this season at just inviting people here to my house, because no matter what's happening, if I could be here, I could still have time with them. And we're really lucky that we have people who love to be around Griffin, and whether or not they get to see him. And also are willing to come over. So making sure that I have plans with those same people, and more so often one-on-one or two-on-two. So it's just a little easier to plan for. But so I pivot and just am extra intentional that way, because I can't guarantee I can get to the things.
And then there's no shame,
Mm-mm.
they're best of
And then no
intention
loss.
and no loss. And
Right.
that's key to all this. So, if your life doesn't look like the picture you imagined, if you're sitting here in the middle of February and you're self-flagellating because you haven't done your New Year's resolutions, trust us when we say you are not doing it wrong.
Mhm. You're just responding to real life with care and creativity and courage, honestly.
Yeah. And that's really all we need. So, if this conversation resonated, again, you've heard Kari and I say this a million times. We're both coaches. This is absolutely the kind of work we do one on one with our clients and absolutely at our retreats.
Yeah, and actually, just over 2 weeks, we're going to be in Palm Springs for this next one. By the time this airs, it may be sold out, but there may be a way to squeeze one person in if you are listening and you feel called to be there. So reach out ASAP. But if not, we will be sharing information really soon about our fall retreat.
I'm so excited to be in Palm
Yeah.
Springs. Yeah, these are spaces, as we've said before, but always bears worth repeating. These spaces at our retreats are for women who want to live honestly, intentionally, and with compassion for themselves.
Mm.
So let us know. Reach out real quick, and we'll see if we can squeeze you into Palm Springs, where it's going to be warm and toasty.
Can't
And
wait.
then I know. And until then, as always, thank you so much for listening, and we will be back next week.
Bye.